Hello, everyone. Welcome everybody to this special session today from the publication roadmap with Nelson Barrera. It's an honor for me to welcome him here to share his great story. Recently matched into cardiology, which is super competitive. We're going to start with a round of introductions. Many people just getting me to know myself also for the first time, and Nelson Chu is going to share his beautiful story. But before we get into the details, I want to remind everyone that this session is part of a series, as part of the publication roadmap, where we're going to do in a few days. Let me ask the team to confirm to me.
Rhanderson, I think your microphone is muted. Yep. I can hear you. Can you guys still hear me well? Marlon? Thanks.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Could you hear the beginning? Can you hear the beginning?
I was able to hear you at the very beginning, but I don't know when you started to talk about the date. I don't know, we lost your audio. Yeah.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what happened. So we're going to do a quick start over. Good to meet everyone. Welcome to this special session with Nelson Barrera. Let's jump right into introductions here. Nelson, you start, please.
Yeah. So I'm Nelson. I'm a IMG from Panama. I did my medical education there in Panama. I graduated in 2017, and I've always wanted to come to the United States to pursue a career in academics here. Was really interested about research and everything related to that when I was in Panama. I would unfortunately never had the opportunity to, get some exposure and actually, work in a project related to research. So, when I came to the United States and I did my residency at St. Juan Hospital in the Bronx, New York. It's a community hospital in the very heart of the Bronx, So before coming to United States, as I said, I didn't have experience in research, and I wanted to pursue a career in cardiology. This was my passion since I was a medical student, and I knew that I had a short period of time to get into fellowship and prepare a curriculum, a competitive curriculum to apply for fellowship. Especially cardiology, as you know, Rhanderson is a very competitive subspecialty. It's perhaps for me one of the most competitive subspecialty right now in the field of internal medicine.
Yeah.
And well, like during that time, I did a little bit of analysis of data sets that are free and available. I paid for other data sets, and it takes a little bit of time to conduct research, this type of research, especially retrospective study and prospective study, like that's out of the panorama for someone who is doing a residency. And then then I joined the meta-analysis academy and I learned how to do meta-analysis. And then during that time, during residency, I try to focus more of my time to do meta-analysis, which is type of research that takes less time to do. I also did a third year chief year there. And then, I applied for fellowship the first time. I unfortunately didn't match. And then I pursue a non-ACDME fellowship. And currently I'm doing non-ACDME fellowship in cardiac amyloidosis and heart failure at Columbia University. And well, my story, I got a couple of publications during this time and before when I was also doing my chief year. And then I eventually matched it in my top choice program, which is University of Florida. And then you can see the publication. It's our publication. I think I told you this before. was not only a publication in JACC Advances. This publication was chosen by the editor of JACC uh, as one of the most impactful publications from JACC Advances. Like they grab all the publications from all the subjournals from JACC, and they basically were like, hey, which were the most impactful, the most viewed, and this publication just became uh, absolutely viral. And I think it was a great paper, a great idea, and I got the support from
Amazing topic.
yeah, from Guilherme, who's a great guy from Brazil, a great friend. Thanks to you for introducing me to Guilherme. Like I met Guilherme in the podcast session that we recorded last year in AHA. You remember?
Yeah.
And ever since then, I have been working with him. We got a couple of publications under our belt. So yeah, that's pretty much my story.
Yeah, no, so this is amazing. Guys, I wanna hit the highlights here, and then we're gonna get from Nelson what he did well in each step to get his career at this level. So the highlights here from Nelson: medical school in Panama, internal medicine residency in the Bronx in New York. What's the name of the program? Remind me, please, Nelson.
St. Barnabas Hospital.
Can you Saint what?
St. Barnabas.
Okay. So internal medicine residency there. And then he applied the first time and didn't match, but then he went into a non-ACGME to a special fellowship within the cardiology field. You're doing amyloidosis, is that correct,
Yes.
Nelson? And then he reapplied and matched at the University of Florida for cardiology. Now, I want you guys, many people junior, I presume, watching us, I want you guys to understand that matching into cardiology as an international medical graduate is super hard. And especially, after going to like a community program, which is not like a big university program. So those are IMG, community program. Those are challenges. And Nelson overcame that, and he matched into cardiology at a great program, University of Florida. So before we go any further, I just want to recognize this great accomplishment and congratulate you, Nelson, on this fantastic career. I'm going to introduce myself first, and I want to ask Nelson a little bit more about his journey and give you guys recommendations on how can you apply it in your own career. So if you guys are meeting myself just now, I am also an IMG. I am from Brazil, and I did my internal medicine at the University of Miami, cardiology fellowship at Johns Hopkins. Then I came to Harvard, where I did an imaging fellowship, and I stayed on as faculty. It's important for both Nelson and I to disclose that whatever we discuss here today is not affiliated with the programs where we worked previously, where we work now. The opinions are exclusively our own. But both of our journeys of being international medical graduates and becoming cardiologists in the United States, they were really made possible by just having these strong papers. So I'm going to start this interview or this chat by going in reverse chronological order, like this very last year before you applied. And it was a transformative year because you hadn't matched in the prior year, and then you matched this cycle. How important do you think, Nelson, the publications, and this one specifically in JACC Advance, as you mentioned, it was a great paper. Obviously, when you apply, it's multifactorial. They look at you were chief resident, so there were other really great things in your application. But how do you think that these strong papers played a role in your application for cardiology?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, probably one of the benches that I had now that I reapply was the presence of impactful publications, And, when I received the news that I didn't match, I knew that I had a short period of time to reapply, and from having a research idea to a publication, it takes months, it takes 7 to 8, 9, 10, sometimes a year, So I knew that I had to start to work like right away. Like there's no time to lose in that regard, So the first thing that I started to do is like I started to look for research ideas in meta-analysis, because I already knew at that point in my career that meta-analysis can be done and can be published in a short period of time. It's not like grabbing a retrospective data. You have to clean the data and analyze the data and so on. So, it takes more time, or create a data set from scratch. That takes like months, like I will be probably reapplying like in the next 2 years. So first of all, the first idea that I had was the idea of the smartwatches. So I knew I had to put myself and separate my application from the rest of the applicants. I have to be really honest that at that time I wasn't expecting to have this, really impactful publication. But at the time that I had the idea, it was like a really interesting idea, and I was like, hey, maybe this paper can, get me there. And like for me, probably one of the best classes of the Meta-Analysis Academy is the class about how to develop research idea. And I think you went very smoothly through perhaps the most important points about how to generate new research idea. And the way I found this idea is because one day I was scrolling to Twitter and I saw publication in circulation that was AFib, smartwatches, and I was like, hey, did anyone has done meta-analysis about that? And I saw like a publication in 2018 analyzing only 3 watches, and I was like, I can do a diagnostic meta-analysis about this, and maybe I can incorporate, like more extra analysis that I learned in the Meta-Analysis Academy to make this more statistically more better for the reviewers, and this is pretty much what I did, and that obviously I had the support of Guillermo. Guillermo wrote a section about a book about smartwatches, so he knew he had experience on this, and my friends also helped me to review the data, to extract the data, and that's basically what I did. And there's another meta-analysis that I did during that period of time, which is about methylation patients with LVAD. And for me, this is a paper that for me is my best work in research. We published this paper in JACC, the Journal of Cardiovascular Electrophysiology, and this perhaps is one of the papers that also helped me the most. And the reason for this is because it allowed me to connect with people in the field who later on, absolutely that one that later on, helped me to that basically support me at my applications. You can see there the senior author is Andre de Avila, super great guy. He's el maestro in VTI ablation. And the second senior author, it's Dr. Paulo Colombo. He's a director of mechanical support here at Columbia University. And Dr. Cello, he's also the director of the EP and the Texas Heart Institute. And all of these people were part of this project, and everyone was like really enthusiastic about this idea. And we did an amazing work with this publication. And I also have to highlight that Juliana Georgi, she mentored me very well during this this project. As I say, people were really.
She's a heart failure specialist. So
she's a heart failure specialist. She's extremely passionate and knowledgeable about LVAD. And and when I was applying to fellowship, I can remember I asked my mentors, and when I say mentors, it's not only the people that I'm working currently, also my senior authors in the papers that you're showing to, send emails in my behalf, and it's really interesting that when I show up to one of the interviews, and I had 8 interviews in places that I wasn't expecting to have, top 5 hospitals in the United States. And when I show up to one of these interviews, one of the interviewers told me I really need to, I wanted to know you. I received an email from the director of EP from Beth Israel. I received an email from the director of the EP from the Texas Heart Institute, from the director of mechanical support from Colombia. Who is this guy, and I think this is where
connections. He's got connections.
Who is this guy who is working in the Bronx and knows everybody, right? And I think this is the advantage that the research gives you. I think people sometimes have their wrong idea about, I believe that quality is better than quantity in that sense, and especially when you collaborate with people from outside. This is the only chance, the only opportunity that you have to, to show to people who don't know you clinically how good you are. This is the place where you can show your leadership, your communication skill. You're able to, come up with idea, be disciplined enough to collaborate with everyone to submit the paper, to get the reviewers' comments,
to get the results done, to get it
get
published.
the work done, and it worked very well for me, because by the time that I was going through the interviews, I received the emails like getting these papers accepted for publication. The paper from JACC was like more advanced at that time, and I emailed those emails to the program director saying like, hey, like updating them like, hey, I got this publication in JACC, and I sent them the preprint from JACC, and I got like 3 or 4 interviews like in the week after that.
Wow.
And it was a game changer. It was a game changer.
I want to emphasize this to folks. Again, that it's hard for people to appreciate the importance of this. So what Nelson is essentially saying is that the publications itself are very impressive, but also the connections that you make with the papers, with the publications. One of the papers, the VT ablation paper, ventricular tachycardia paper, he published again with the director of electrophysiology from one of the Harvard hospitals. The director of electrophysiology from Columbia. So like you have these really strong, well-known, respected researchers, cardiologists who get to know Nelson through research and then support his application. You heard it from him. These attendees, these chiefs of services emailed the programs where he interviewed, and they were super impressed. They're like, who is this guy? Like, everyone is emailing us about him. It's because the publications allow you to make these valuable connections that will help you in your career. And the other point that Nelson highlighted, and I want to emphasize, is the quality of the papers. The VT ablation is published in JACC, a really great electrophysiology journal. The other paper that it showed is published in JACC, one of the JACC journals, JACC Advances, Journal of the American College of Cardiology. So when he got that acceptance in the middle of interview season, he sent the email to some places, and he got more interviews, and the places where he interviewed were more interested in him because he's publishing this great paper. So it's the impact. It's not just the number of publications, the strength, being first author, the connections that you make through research that open the opportunities for great fellowships, for great residency programs. This is fantastic. This is really, really great. I want to emphasize another point about applying for fellowship. And a lot of people here are not even in residency yet, but I just don't want to miss this opportunity. I want everyone to understand the importance of research, the connections, but there's one extra element that really helps when you apply for fellowship, which is your reputation as a resident. I know some of you are still far ahead in your far junior in your career for this to matter, but understand this: when you start internal medicine residency and you want to match into cardiology, into GI, into hem-onc, these competitive specialties, make sure you should be doing this anyway, but especially if you're applying for great competitive specialties, make sure you develop a great reputation. You're clinically strong. People like working with you. You're nice and kind to others. You work hard. These are elements that will translate into great letters of recommendation, someone picking up the phone and calling for you. And Nelson can attest to this because he was not only a great resident, but he was also a chief resident. So he knows the residents that will give him trouble and the residents that people will call on their behalf. So Nelson, I'd like you to speak a little bit about the just being a good resident and how that impacts letters of recommendations and fellowship.
Yeah, absolutely. My mentor always said it's better to be nice than smart. It's easier to be nice than smart, and so in that regard, I think, at the end of the day, I think probably the second most important thing that makes a difference when you're applying to fellowship, and also for those who are applying to internal medicine residency or other specialties, is that letter of recommendation. So who's going to write your letter of recommendation is something like really important. I will suggest people to ask someone who actually knows you. And when I mean knows you, is know you not only has arrested them, but also like knows you a little bit more. How are you as a person? Because I think in paper everyone looks fine. Everyone is like a great resident and hardworking, this and that. sometimes it's a little bit difficult to find in those special words in the letter of recommendation that truly make you different. Like, hey, he did this for a patient one time, and this is when I realized that he was like a great resident, or I don't know, like I don't write letter of recommendations, but from the letter of recommendation that I was able to read later after I applied, I realized that my mentors truly knew me, and the things that they wrote about me in the letter of recommendation. I was like, wow, I wasn't, like aware that they saw me in that way, and so yeah, I think the other important point is, as you pointed out, it's be a good resident, and also be a nice resident, especially because those who are going to write your letter of recommendation, you're going to need a letter of recommendation from your current director. And so if you are, the resident that is a headache from time to time, that gets a report here and there, like it's difficult for your current director to, like write a strong letter of recommendation. I think when you're applying to competitive fellowships, having a strong letter of recommendation, it's like the gold standard. This is what pretty much everyone should have. But if you have like an okay letter of recommendation, I think that's probably considered a red flag. Like if I'm a program director and I'm reading your letter of recommendation that says like hey, you are an okay resident, I may think like, hey, this is actually a potential red flag. Like, well, there's something that it's like not good here. So
yeah, letters of recommendations really have to be stellar. They have to be really, really good. I want to also emphasize that what Nelson did in terms of the connections in his meta-analysis, guys, that's not restricted for those who apply for fellowship. You could be an IMG from wherever you are in the world. By the way, where are you guys from? Where are you guys in the audience? Where are you guys? Can you list the countries where you're from just so we can get to know you? I suppose a lot of IMGs like Nelson and I in the chat, but let me know, please. But what I want to show you guys here is that you guys can really also develop really great publications yourself. And that's what we're going to teach you in the publication roadmap. Remember to join us on February. It's next weekend, 21 and 22nd. I'm just confirm those dates. Yes. Make sure to join us for the publication roadmap, where you're going to learn these details on how to build really strong publications to advance your guys' career. And here's the paper I wanted to share with you guys. So this is a publication from one of our students. She's still a medical student at the time in Brazil, and she invited an attending from Harvard to participate in her meta-analysis. So her name is Larissa, and she published in a really great hematology journal. And you guys have this freedom when you learn how to do meta-analysis. You have this freedom and autonomy to invite attendings at Harvard or other places around the world to join your research papers. So this is really important. Nelson, let's talk about internal medicine. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't. That didn't work. I didn't show the paper from Larissa. It didn't. It shared the wrong page. Oh, there we go. This is the paper. Finally, I think you guys can see it now. Okay, so this is the paper in Journal of Thrombosis and Hemostasis. So Nelson, you participated in the selection of residents. You were a chief resident. I'm sure you interview people, you reviewed applications. There's a lot of people who are going to apply for internal medicine in the chat. Let them know what are the most relevant points that we talked about letters of recommendation. What are some other elements that you would look for when you interview someone for internal medicine residency?
Yeah, absolutely. Other than the curriculum, there's I think two important things. One is soft skills. I think people soft skills are completely underrated. And the second thing, it's how you communicate your intentions and your interests towards the program. And when I want to highlight about the soft skills, and this is kind of related to communication, is how you behave during the interviews. Most of the interviews are conducted through Zoom, and it's kind of difficult to have a good connection with people through a Zoom call. So but that's why you need to practice. Like these things don't come naturally. Like at least for me, don't come naturally. So I have to, practice the things you're gonna say. Like it's not the same thing like having an in-person interview, which is a game changer, especially for the last fellowship season. And the thing is, how you, as I mentioned, how you express your interest in the program. And this is when you have to do your own research about the program that you're applying, about the program that you're interviewing. Like trying to know every single detail about the program, about the people who are interviewing you, about like who are the residents there, like what's that research that they're doing, what's the clinical practice focus. Because not everyone in big institutions or small institutions do research. Like there are people who are just focused on clinical work. And this, first of all, is gonna help you to answer perhaps the most important question, that is why you want to come here. And when people ask you this, you don't want to say like, oh, I want to come here because I like New York. Like, oh well, there's like 10,000 programs in internal medicine in New York, you can go to any of these programs. This is when you want to say like, hey, I want to come here because I like this about this program. I feel that this particular person is doing this type of research that I'm really interested into it. I'm really passionate about this topic, and I see myself working here in the future. Like um, let me just tell you something about a question that I had when I was interviewing for the cardiology fellowship, and this was a really hard question, but I used this question into my advantage. I was interviewing with the head of cardiology in a program, and he also was the vice chair of medicine. And he told me, Nelson, you're a great guy. You have a really competitive curriculum, but unfortunately you're an IMG, you're an H-1B visa, which is currently being banned by Trump administration, unfortunately. Uh, what are you gonna do if you don't match? You already failed once. And you know what I told him? And I told him, if I don't match, you will receive a call from me the day after to get an internal medicine position in your program, because this is the place that I want to work and pursue a career. And he was like, what? Like you have to be prepared for all of these questions. And I think this is where you have to, first prepare, second prepare, and third, you have to be extremely prepared for absolutely everything during this in interviews. And yeah, you have to be yourself, but like you have to be the smart version of yourself, because you can't commit mistakes at this stage of your career. Like this is the interview that is it's gonna change your career, that's gonna change your life, that is gonna open you the path to come to United States to work here, and and so on. So you have to take this really seriously, and practice rehearsal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, 10 times.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The interview is such a key component. Um,
Absolutely.
and Nelson mentioned also, I would like to add, whether it's in the interview on the application itself, like on a personal statement, I think it really helps if you guys have like a good story that connects your past with your future. Like what I mean is like, make sure, and this is a really helpful thing, make sure your past aligns with what you say your career goals are. For example, every time I've interviewed for residency, for fellowship, for imaging fellowship, I've always told interviewers, I want to be a clinician educator. I love teaching. I love clinical
Yeah.
medicine. And my past actions prove that. I was a teaching assistant in medical school. I was a chief resident. I won teaching awards. And this really said, okay, this guy is the real deal. He's not just, making this up, that he wants to be in academic medicine. And I fulfilled my promise. I finished fellowship and I stayed on as an academic cardiologist. So telling these stories, and it doesn't have to be on that. It could be you're passionate about oncology, about breast cancer, or whatever it may be. Like you have, but do research in that topic. Be excited about that. Know what's being done in the field. Know who Nelson said something that's really important. Know who the mentors are in that program. You can, if you're going to interview in a place for a hem-onc and there's an oncologist who's a specialist in breast cancer, and you want to talk to that person, ask to talk to them, ask to, hey, can we set up a 20-minute Zoom call, or meet in person? Be proactive. Like go
Yeah.
fight for what your goals are, your ambitions are. Study the programs, like Nelson said. And these are in addition to the basics. We haven't talked about passing step 1 and, doing well in step 2 and getting good observership. Like those things are pretty basic. We're talking about doing really high level research, building a strong network, knowing what the plan is, what your career plan is, being the guy or the gal with a plan. That really makes a difference.
Yep.
Don't go to an interview and like, what do you want to do? I don't know. I'll figure it out. Don't do that.
Yeah.
It's okay if you apply for internal medicine and you tell them, I want to do cardiology. I want to be the best cardiologist that I can. I'm going to really work hard. I'm going to teach. I'm going to do research. Be specific on your plans. They may change later. No one's going to hold you accountable if you want to change your mind from cardiology to GI. But when you interview, make sure you have a good plan and you articulate it. You're able to communicate it effectively and do the other stuff we talked about, research, connections, all of
that. That's why it's really important to rehearsal, practice many times.
Nice. Very, very good. I'll just tell a quick story about this. When I matched into cardiology myself, I matched at Johns Hopkins. My program director from internal medicine called the program director from Hopkins on my behalf. So that's because, of course, I had built a really strong reputation as a resident. I was a chief, people liked working with me and all of that. So make sure you guys do this throughout your career. All right. Very good. So Nelson, let's go back. Let's keep going back in chronological order. How was we talked a lot about applying for fellowship. What was residency like in the Bronx? Like clinical volumes, hard work. Just give people a sense what it's like to be a resident in a really busy community program in the largest city in the U.S.
Yeah, absolutely. All I can say is New York is New York, and it's we have like 9 to 10 million people in a very small island. So you can imagine how packed the emergency rooms and the medicine floors and surgery floors are, full of patients. So in that sense, in community hospitals, you get a lot of exposure to patients pretty much, and also a lot of hands-on experience. Like, I think I was like placing catheters and since my first year. I think by the time I finished my internal medicine residency, I don't know, I was like certified and recertified, like placing all sort of lines. So I got a lot of clinical and hands-on exposures in that regard, and didn't have too much exposure in research, but that wasn't an obstacle for me. I think if you want to succeed, you're going to find a way, and this is pretty much what I tried to do. I was like, well, we don't have research here. Like, let's start our own research here. And during my residency, when I was a chief, I applied for a grant, and we got a computer, and we got a statistical software subscription for life, and also access to, data sets for the residents to do research. So I was like, well, I'm leaving, and this is gonna be my legacy for anyone who wants to, do some research. And I also became part of the meta-analysis academy, and this definitely opened me like many doors, like to great people, great friends that I look forward to see every meetings, like every AHA, every ACC meetings. I'm just like texting everyone like, hey, how are you? Where are you? We need to gather and chat. Let's go for coffee. So
yeah, this is a good point. The connection, the friendships you make also for research and during residency in our academic careers, I think it's one of the best things of academic medicine. Like, people really care about each other and just generally want to help out, and then you meet them over and over in these conferences, like you said. It's pretty neat. And then going back further in time, applying for internal medicine residency. I know it was a while back, but a lot of people want to hear, why did you decide, from Panama to come to the United States? What were some of your reasons?
Well, I think the main reason was I was looking for a career in academics, like to get not only a top-notch training in internal medicine, but also pursue pretty much do the things that I'm like currently doing here at Columbia, like strong research that actually are changing the way medicine is being practiced, at least in a very specific field of medicine. So yeah, that was the primary reason why I wanted to come to the United States. If you ask me why I wanted to come to New York, well, that's another question. Most of my friends from Panama who were already living here or doing residency here, they were here in New York. So I had some, internal connections. Although most of my family live in Florida. But I think like New York is an incredible city to be. It's an incredible city to get trained. It's a great place to make connections because like the top-notch hospitals in the United States are here in New York. Like NYU, Columbia, Sinai, Cornell, and so on. So it's like you go to this AHA local meetings and you have the opportunity to meet great people. Like people who are doing like great work in their field, and you have this opportunity to know them, to get their input, to be part of the work they're currently doing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, everyone has like different reasons. Obviously, you come from a great country, from Panama, um, and I think for me, it was some of the same reasons you mentioned, just the opportunities for training, the career. Like I've had opportunity, not just the places where I trained, like I mentioned earlier, Hopkins and Harvard, but like the people I met, the mentors I had. Like I now get to participate in the ACC guidelines and writing chapters for Brownwell textbook of cardiology. Like these are things that really would happen in my career because of the training in the U.S. I'm also really grateful for it. I would encourage everyone interested here in pursuing, if that's your career goal. Very good. So, guys, I just want to wrap up with telling everyone again about the publication roadmap. Again, this is going to be on the 21st and 22nd. That's Saturday and Sunday, not this Sunday, but next one. And it's going to be 12 p.m. London time. What you're going to learn there is how you can publish no matter where you are in the world in these best journals. And I really mean wherever you are in the world. I'm going to share a paper here by one of our students. I'm pretty sure he is from Malaysia. I mentioned Malaysia because I saw someone from Malaysia in the chart. I may be wrong, but I think he's from Malaysia. And he's now a neurology resident in Brooklyn, in sunny downstate. But even before he was a resident, he published some really good papers, some really good meta-analysis in our program. And that's the same journey that Nelson described here. It's whether you're from Panama or from Malaysia or from Brazil or from Dubai or from Pakistan or wherever. I'm going to teach you guys a technique that you can apply, and no matter also your current stage in your career, which can help you advance and do well in your career. So make sure you guys join the publication roadmap. It's going to be on Sunday, February 21 and 22nd, and invite your friends to join as well. Nelson, I want to again congratulate you for the career. I want to thank you for joining, for sharing your story. I wanted to wrap up by asking you, for hobbies, like what do you like to do in your free time, just so people can get to know you as a person as well. Like, how do you like to spend your time when you're not writing meta-analysis for JACC?
That's a great question. This is part also of being having a healthy lifestyle, I will say, because not everything is related to medicine or research. During residency, I teach myself how to play drums, and I with a group of friends from residency, we come up with a kind of a music band, and we used to gather during residency to play music and sing and stuff like that. So we finished residency and everyone moved to different places. So I'm just playing drums in my apartment. I also recently bought a guitar and also playing guitar, and doing exercise and trying to keep myself entertained all the time. But I always try to do different stuff. I really like music, so I always go to jazz shows here in New York, or the Philharmonic presentations, and there's plenty of activities to do here. Your museums and a lot of stuff. So I try to go out very often.
Yeah, you excited to move to Florida?
Yeah, of course. I'm getting tired of the cold, honestly. Especially this winter has been a nightmare.
Yeah. So, guys, Nelson is in New York. I live in Boston, and we love the Northeast from April to October, and we don't like it from November to.
But this winter here in New York has been so harsh. We still have ice everywhere. It's just not melting.
Yeah, I took off. I'm in Brazil right now on vacation because I couldn't. I took a break in the winter.
So that, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. I want to answer this question from Angel. It's a really great question. This is something we didn't talk about, it's my mistake, and I really appreciate the question from Angel. So let's just summarize what we discussed today. If you want to apply for cardiology, for HEMONC, for GI, or any of the residencies that are very competitive, like surgery, anesthesia, things like that, these are ultra competitive specialties or fellowships. You guys need to have do the basics well. Let's just summarize what we discussed. You do the basics very well. You pass step 1. You guys make sure you get a good score on step 2. You do great rotations. You get great letters of recommendations, and that's sort of like the basics. Those things it's hard to differentiate applicants based on that, because it's people, generally speaking, pass step 1. The pass rate is almost 90% for first-time takers. You're going to get good letters of recommendation. So don't make mistakes on these things. But even if you do them very well, it's hard to stand out on the basis of that. The things that are really going to help you out in these specialties are the publications. We talked about that. The connections. We talked about that. Nelson had people who are chiefs of electrophysiology, people who are really prominent in their field, call on his behalf in the places where he interviewed. So those connections are really valuable. We talked about how research helps you build those connections. All right. And then have a good story, have a plan, have a nice career goal, be specific and about your intentions, and interview well. We talked about that. But one element we didn't highlight, is that when you apply for a second residency, or fellowship, I should say, the first residency, where you did it, makes a difference. It's true that it makes a difference. So if you're applying for internal medicine and you want to do HEMONC or GI, try to, and this is obvious, but it's still worth highlighting, try to match into the strongest internal medicine program possible. Don't settle for less, because it does help you later on. But even if you go to a program that's not super well known, or even if you go to a community program like Nelson, and we have many students in the Meta-Analysis Academy, if you do the other things right, like publish a lot, build those connections, you still can match at a great fellowship program. So the answer is yes, the program matters where you match and do your internal medicine residency, but it's not because you don't match at, a university program. It's not that your chances are done. Of course not. You're going to work really hard, develop a good reputation. People are going to like you. You're going to get great letters, and you're going to publish a lot, and all these things we talked about. And you're ultimately also going to match well into fellowship. So this is a great question from Angel. Nelson, would you like to add anything? Does that sound good?
No, I think you pretty much cover everything. I think I definitely agree with you, and I think I'm probably the best example for that. It is possible. It's not easy. I think it's not even easier for American graduates to match into really competitive fellowship, and you can look the stats. There's a lot of people. I think 32% of the people who apply to fellowship this year, at least in cardiology, didn't got a position, and I know people who are great, smart people who unfortunately didn't match either. And it takes a lot of effort, a lot of dedication, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We have just to wrap up the session. We have a student in the Meta-Analysis Academy who's from Paraguay, another IMG. Her name is Esther. She did residency in a community program in Chicago, struggled with research in the beginning, joined our program, published a lot, and then matched at the University of Texas.
Wow.
In San Antonio. So really great program for cardiology as well. So full of stories like this, but yeah, do try to match well into internal medicine, and then do a good job to match into fellowship. Nelson, thank you again so much. It's an honor to see you here again. I'm so happy. I remember when we met in person at, I think it was American Heart. We recorded that.
American Heart Association. Yeah. It was like about a year and a half or so.
A year and a half. It was November 2024. And now,
thanks for the invitation at that time, and thanks for the invitation now. I'm more than happy to participate in these meetings, and really happy to see you.
Best of luck in fellowship, and it's look forward to the next steps in your career. For everyone listening, if you have any questions that I haven't answered here, please feel free to send us a message. myself a message. We're on Instagram at metaanalysis.academy, and I'll see everyone in the publication roadmap. There's a link in the chat for you guys to join February 21 and 22nd. Nelson, see you later, my friend. Thank you very much, brother. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.